Get comfortable, ladies and gentlemen. This is probably going to be a long one. Answering a patron question that makes for a great topic. My carry journey, guns that I've carried, why I chose them and why I moved on from them, what my experiences were. And as you can imagine, as a guy that's reviewed almost 500 handguns now, I've had my option to try quite a few. So, get comfortable. Here we go. Before we go too far into this, of course, some disclaimers. Just because I don't mention something doesn't mean that it's not worth carrying. Yes, there are others that I might have dabbled in and carried briefly. For example, the SIG 365 XL with an Icarus Precision grip module. Carried that briefly for a short time, went back to what I was carrying. No things against that particular gun. I just prefer to spend time with what I've spent a lot of time with, i.e. carry what I shoot and carry what I've trained with. Another disclaimer is because I spent most of my time training drawing from a strong side, that is how I still carry. I know appendix is cool and there are valid reasons for appendix. There's also valid reasons for strong side. That's where I've got the most experience in training. That's what I'm most comfortable with doing, so that's what I stick with. Also with my body shape and size, that's where it's easiest to conceal things, which is another disclaimer. As you go on your journey, you might find that what you can carry and get away with is totally dependent on your body shape and size, your comfort threshold, your chosen carry position. There's a lot of variables in there. So keep that in mind when thinking about what you might or might not carry. The last little bit on that comfort and where you carry, etc., is holsters. One of the reasons why I haven't carried some of the hundreds of guns that I've reviewed, despite liking them on the range, was either lack of holster availability in general or lack of holster availability of a holster that I knew I liked. Funny side note journey experience on that, just because you find a holster you like for your make and model doesn't mean that same make and model holster is going to be great when configured for another gun. There was a particular holster that I used for about 5-6 years that I absolutely loved. When I changed guns, I was like, I'm going to order another one of those because that thing served me great for so long. Turns out that with the shape of that next gun and its weight and how the weight balanced and all those things, that holster was terribly uncomfortable. So this is one of the reasons why I don't give holster recommendations on the channel. I did review some very interesting universal holsters that help with a lot of the oddities that I get to review and also let you carry in different positions and configure. I recommend looking at something like that if you're looking to start and want to experiment with different guns or different carry positions. With that out of the way, let's get to Graham's carry journey. Interestingly enough, I actually wrote a multi-page article on this for, I believe it was Personal Defense World magazine a few years back, answering all of this and going through all of this. So this video format will be a little bit different, but of course I've also carried some different things since then. Starting off, my first carry gun was my first handgun, and that was a Springfield 1911 A1, and something you'll notice is kind of funny on here. You see it says model 1911 A1, and then back here it says TRP. That's because I bought this in 2002, 2003 as a basic GI model. Then I went to my first course. I was fortunate enough to learn from Scott Reitz at International Tactical Training Seminars. Excellent instructor, excellent course. That's where I learned handgunning using a GI 1911. Came back from that 1,200 round 4-day course with sore hands and some things I wanted done. So then I spent about $2,500 in early 2000s money. I was a young enlisted soldier, didn't have any bills, and spent some time paying that off to get all this stuff done to the gun, which became later basically the TRP model. But I was paying a smith to cut and shape and do all the things to this gun. Still have this pistol, obviously, decades later. Still a good gun. I just think I've hit maybe kind of the end of that useful lifespan of 1911s before they need a major rework. I carried it because it's what I had. That lasted roughly a week or two until I realized that this was really heavy, rather uncomfortable for me. The 5-inch barrel was a little bit much to stick down the side of my pants. The all-steel weight got obnoxious, and then limited capacity as well, I started to doubt my choice in a carry pistol, so I moved on from the all-steel 45 1911. Surprise. This was my next choice, the Springfield XDM. Yes, I want to make sure it wasn't some kind of other XDM 45 in 3.8 inch size, compact. I looked at this, I knew Springfield as a brand, that was the only other handgun I had owned. I said, hey, that's a double stack, now I'm getting 12 round capacity in something that is smaller and easier to conceal and lighter weight even with the extra rounds of ammunition. This was really comfortable for me to carry, provided quite a bit of confidence, though it is quite broad, as you can see, because it's a 45. And when I got into weekend competitions, the local USPSAs and pin shoots and things like that around the areas of Southwest Oregon, Northwest Washington, because it was a 45, it was pushing me into a higher class of competition. And it was at a pin shoot when I first discovered muzzle energy and what kinetic energy differences there are from round to round depending on barrel length. This is why I always stress this in my gun reviews when I'm talking about different barrel lengths per caliber. 3.8 inch barrel is insufficient in my opinion for 45 ACP because that round is designed to go from a 5-inch barrel, which means the hollow points that I was carrying were meant for a 5-inch barrel. And when you chop off a lot of velocity by going to a shorter barrel, they may not hit hard enough to open. And I realized that I had lost that much energy at a pin shoot when, as a 45 guy, I had to start with the pins at the leading edge of the table and hit them all the way back. If you've never done a pin shoot, they're loads of fun. It's a blend of skill and luck. Lots of skill, but just enough luck that sometimes the underdog wins and sometimes the pro champ doesn't do so hot. Loads of fun. But I noticed that this 3.8 inch 45 was not knocking the pins as well as a 4-inch 9mm. And that shocked me, because only 2/10 more barrel length for a narrower gun with higher capacity, and, yes, indeed, more energy from a 4-inch 9 than a 3.8 inch 45. That got me studying all the ballistics, that got me thinking about my hollow points, and that's why it was time to move on from this. So, you're in the market for your first real concealed carry gun, and you want 9mm. What does the gun shop tell you? Glock 19. This one, Gen 3 Glock 19, of course, has been heavily modified because I, like so many other Glock owners, got the gun, loved the reliability, loved the simplicity, started to really study the gun, learn how easy it was to change parts out in it, and this was 2013-ish, I want to say. The aftermarket for Glock 19 parts was starting to explode, and there were parts everywhere. They were reasonably affordable, promising amazing things because, of course, no one had disproved any of it. So I spent a lot of money, a lot of time on modifying the heck out of this gun to try to make it more of what I wanted. You notice I even have grip tape on the outside of the gun because I'm right-handed, but not on the inside, so it'd be comfortable to carry, but still give me a little bit more grip because my fingers perfectly misalign with a Glock 19 grip. My fingers land on the high spot of the finger grooves, giving me minimal surface area to hold on to, and then my pinky dangles off the end, which means it gets smashed when I insert a magazine. I learned that hard at a front sight trip. That's why this mag well's on here, not to help me reload, but to keep my finger out of the way so I can load mags without hurting myself. In the end, I had spent much more money on the gun, on parts, than I did on the gun itself. I learned a lot about pistols, but I still didn't have a pistol that felt comfortable in my hand or that I particularly enjoyed shooting. Enter the Walther P99 and ergonomics that I have described as felt so good the first time I picked it up, I thought my hand would get pregnant. Walther, especially with the P99, of course, fast forward to today, they're very well known for their ergonomics and great design. The P99, believe it or not, was actually the first handgun to come with interchangeable backstraps from the factory. This thing, it felt great, incredible trigger. Love the anti-stress system, the 3 trigger modes that are on here, the fact that it has a decocker, because I started to, as I got more training, get more conscious about triggers and learn like, hey, you know what? Maybe a double action first shot is a good thing if I'm stressed. Keep in mind, I'm also an Afghanistan and Iraq veteran, had some PTSD times, had some itchy moments when I wouldn't say clearing the house, but some times of stress when all those alarms went off, and I was aware of those, cognizant of them, which is a very important skill for veterans to develop. that also meant that ever it came to the time when I was pulling a gun out, maybe that double action first shot could save a life in that give me time to better assess things. Real talk, folks. Love the P99. I put some tritium fiber optic sights on it. Also, this is when I discovered the DPM Systems recoil assembly, which took this smooth shooting gun and made it really smooth shooting. The paddle mag release, awesome, because I wasn't having to shift my hand or break my grip to hit the magazine release, just lifting up my middle finger and hitting there. Spectacular gun. Love this thing. And even the contour of the heel helps reduce printing a little bit. You just don't have as jagged of an edge. The highest edge is a curve and then it drops down before you have a jagged edge. So it was pretty comfortable, but at this point, believe it or not, I still hadn't fully adopted my clothing style, nor had the, let's say, pro-freedom clothing industry really taken its form yet to have a lot of shirts and things out there to help people conceal. So every once in a while I felt like this was a little bit too big, but I freaking loved the gun, and I loved that it was a gun that I could train with, go to courses with, and then carry. And that, I think you guys who have been watching the channel for a while know I harp on that all the time. If you can find that, that is your Goldilocks. Stick with that gun until you have a really good reason to move on and not lose that same benefit. Because the gun you train with, the gun you fight with, that's the way to do it. Having a range gun and having a carry gun that you hardly ever shoot, it's a bad idea. But with the thickness being a little big, and I think at that time also, towards the end of this gun's carry life, I had to change my attire for employment, and so I felt like I needed something a little bit smaller. And around this time, Tactikitty's squawking. Believe it or not, Tactikitty's been with me for 19 years now, and she was at least 3 to 5 when I adopted her, so she actually remembers most of these guns. Walther PPS, with the rise of the single stack 9 craze. This was one of the early guns, PPS M2, mind you, one of the early review guns that I got to do, and my hand fits on it, which it didn't on the other single stack 9s. That plus great ergonomics made me fall in love with this thing. Super slim. It was 9-round capacity with this biggest mag, which felt like not a terrible compromise, and this became kind of a favorite go-to for slim carry. I also alternated with the Bersa BP9CC. Spectacular gun. That trigger a little bit too light, and I started thinking about triggers again because remember I had just come off of a DASA. This trigger is not inappropriate for carry now, but as a still relatively new shooter, I wasn't entirely comfortable. And right on the heels of that, short-lived in my carry rotation, was the PPQ SC, the subcompact PPQ. If I take the extended magazine out, you can see how small this little guy is. But now we've got the bigger capacity, which with the PPS M2, I felt like I was giving up. Neat little gun. The internal of this slide is quite a bit different from the other PPQs. Some interesting little Easter eggs in there from a very famous designer. Neat little gun. Snappy because of the short barrel, but with a little more to hold on to, it felt more comfortable than PPS. However, this trigger is part of that borderline competition pedigree, and I was already kind of wary of triggers and stress, so like I said, this was short-lived. So back to DASA with a decocker. Now this is the Bersa TPR9. This is actually one of my house guns, so that's why it's outfitted with night sights and got a light laser combo on it as well. The TPR9C, the compact, is what I carried briefly because I really loved both of these guns. Compact wasn't available for an appearance today, so we're going to show the full size. But this guy has a decocker and safety, or you go down and now you're back into a double action first shot. Very smooth double action, very comfortable gun to shoot. It's a little bit broad in the hand, but that for me was a big part of the shooting comfort. It's kind of like riding a sofa when you shoot. Just the construction, the trigger, everything was appropriate. Really like the TPR9C aside from its breadth. Enter the Grand Power pistols. Anyone who's been with the channel any length of time knows that I'm a pretty hardcore fan of these. This is the K100, which is the 4¼ inch DASA 15 rounder, and the P11, which is the 3.6, 3.7, it's a subcompact size, 12 rounder. And these two are where I got into the summer carry, winter carry concept. That because I can conceal a bigger gun in the winter and want a bigger gun in the summertime when it's hot. Smaller gun, easier to conceal, and a likely threat is probably wearing less dense clothing, so maybe a little less concerned. I don't know. I still didn't love that this wasn't a 4-inch barrel, but at times when this was going to be too much gun to carry, I like this one. Now these particular models, these are both Mark 12s, generations that are off the market now, aside from maybe some leftovers that you could possibly still grab. And these are decocker models, which unfortunately have not been imported since Global Ordnance took over import of Grand Power, which is really a bummer, because these, I love the way these work. You can go safety up, and of course all controls are ambi on all Grand Powers aside from the latest Street Bogs, the 10mm and the 45. With the safety up, you've got safe. You can go down and leave it down for DA only. Great for learning the DA trigger, or for someone who's super nervous. Pop it back to the middle and you've got a double action first shot and single action shots thereafter. Spectacular guns, soft recoiling, very easy to shoot, very easy to master. Love these things. I actually went through a couple of them. I had a single action only that I carried for a little while, but I used it so many times that the little detent on the safety kind of wore, and rather than replace the safety lever, which probably would have been the fiscally responsible way to do it, I just bought another K100 and moved on from there. But this DASA frame has been swapped between a couple different slides and things over the years. Spectacular guns, highly underrated. And I camped on these things for years. It took me a lot to move off of them. And now we get a little fancy, kind of reversing off of the trigger. Sensitivity at this point, I'd had enough training that I appreciated a crisp trigger and felt much more confident with it. Also dealt with some more of my demons and things to be a calmer person in general. And so the BUL Armories. These are the latest generation. What's holstered are the older generation of the Ultralight. Little 3 1/4 inch, 15 rounder. Beats the pants off of the staccato equivalency on specs. Plus, BUL Armory was willing to have a GBGuns review, whereas staccato has ignored me while choosing to stick with influencers. So that makes me trust BUL Armory a lot more than staccato. 3 1/4 inch barrel isn't 4 inches, but by this point, in fact, I've been carrying these for 2 years now. I'd learned enough about Plus P and found the right Plus P ammunition to run well on these. That's the Liberty Ammunition Civil Defense 50 grainers. They deliver great energy and printed really well out of this. Very comfortable summer carry gun. Is a little slightly thicker possibly because it's, of course, a double stack. Now the latest generation has changed the grip a little bit. So the hand fit and carry fit is going to be slightly different on it versus the earlier one. I talked about that in the article. And then the other one is the EDC. Now this one is currently missing its top plate. I had an optic on here. It's the SAS2 4 1/4 tack, or SAS2 tack 4 1/4 was the old name. Now the EDC is the aluminum one and the tack is the steel frame one to make it a little bit easier. I like the aluminum for the carry weight. On the range, of course, I shoot better with the weight of the steel one, but it's a noticeable enough difference that shooting them side by side, for a range activity, I'd choose the steel. However, I've also taken the aluminum frame one to training courses, since that's what I carry. Impeccable fit and finish. A lighter and shorter trigger. In fact, the one on this one is a little extra nice. But predictable enough, and something that I spent enough time with that I got comfortable with carrying the shorter, lighter trigger. I love this guy, the 4 1/4, for getting the extra velocity out of it. Also, superior capacity. The only thing is that heel does print a little bit, but also by this point been carrying for well over a decade and handgunning for a couple decades, and so I've generally learned to dress around it or just behave around it, if you know what I mean, like how to not bend and things like that. So, I have been through quite a wide variety of guns, and this is just what I've carried, not to mention what all I've reviewed and shot over the years. As with everything, it's a personal choice, and as you hopefully survived long enough in this video to understand, every time we make a choice, that is the choice we made based on our circumstances, knowledge, comfort level, things like that. This is why I generally don't recommend one gun over another, because it really comes down to personal preference, your training level, your comfort level, and what you expect to be doing with it, the clothing you're going to be wearing, the environment you're in, all those things. So anytime somebody says, oh yeah, you should carry this, they're probably not aware of all those factors. I haven't really thought about it too much. I've carried DASAs, I've carried SAOs, I've carried striker-fired guns, I've carried single stacks, I've carried duty-sized guns by many people's definitions. And there are a few other honorable mentions that I carried lightly. I'm not going to dive into them here because we've gone far enough, but I hope this shows you that your needs can change, your comfort levels can change. I do not for a moment take for granted that I've had the opportunity to try so many guns, thanks to giving up all of my vacation time, most of my weekends and nights to review all of these. And the fact that your gun wasn't on this list doesn't mean that your gun is wrong. It's the parallel that I like to draw all the time is that handguns are very much like cars. If you look in any given parking lot, chances are you are unlikely to see repeats of the exact same make, model, and trim level. And that's because we all get the car that we need, that we can afford, that has the features that we can afford, and performance and other things like that that are within our budget. And sometimes there's great deals, sometimes there's not, sometimes we have brand loyalty, sometimes we're trying to avoid a certain brand. And the same thing can happen with handguns. So whatever you've got, I'm happy for you, as long as it's something you're comfortable with and you train with. I'd be curious to hear if you guys want to list in the comment section below what you've carried over the years, and if you made any drastic moves from one make model to another, and why. Thank you guys for 10 years of support and hundreds of guns worth of reviews. There's more coming just as soon as we can pry open some more companies that aren't shy. It's quite honestly, to go on a little side rant here, because I figured the only people watching this late in the video are dedicated viewers anyways. It's frustrating, annoying, and it's really getting old. Interacting with some of these companies. Anyone who's seen the channel knows that I treat every gun fairly. If I have a bias, positive or negative, I tell it to you. But the protocol for the tabletop and the protocol for the range video does not change. That gives every gun a fair chance. I don't do highlight reels, I don't do burn reels, and sometimes my opinions change of the gun because of that process and during that process, which I also comment on at the end of the video. To me, it's about as fair as any one person can get reviewing a gun, and yet there are still some companies who are shy about that. It's really wild. But I appreciate all of you who have subscribed and stuck with us through the years, through the many changes and evolutions, and there's more to come. Thanks for watching.
Thank you to our Patreon supporters. GBGuns and I do 2 level, Andrew P. Joseph T. Randy A. Algie, Peter A. Tom, Moises S. Bass, Eddie, Talo 215, Brian P. Scott King, Derek West Jr., Donald H. Thanks for the teamwork. JS, Farhan, Grandpa. ukulele.